SocialBakers is a company we founded 4 years ago as a social media agency originally. And if you find something as a social media agency, you have to help a lot of clients improve themselves in social media, which we did. And very quickly we figured out there's actually nothing that can measure the effect of what we did. And we were doing very good campaigns for our customers, and the competitors were not doing as well. So we thought, you know, what do we have to do? So the idea of, at that time, the company was named Candy Tech, and we're like, how do we measure all of that? So we started SocialBakers, and it was a great 4 years, really, for us. We started the company as 4 co-founders, and now we're at 100 people in 4 years. We started with no money. We bootstrapped the company. We got it invested only last year. And we built it where 100 of the Fortune 500 customers actually are using us. We have 750 paying customers at this moment, and over 350,000 marketers around the world use our site as the go-to place for social marketing stats. So for us, that was a big deal and a great ride. If we look at social analytics, we came in the game actually quite late. There were a lot of players like Radian6, Sysomos, and others, and they were doing a particular part of social analytics. We feel social analytics has a couple angles. Other than social listening, there's obviously influence monitoring, there's the platform metrics themselves, but we're looking at a specific view on social analytics. We're looking at competitive benchmarking, and I'll tell you what that is during my presentation, and I'll try and explain what are the metrics you should be following, and what are the things you should be looking at in social media analytics. Now, basically, listening is only about tapping into a keyword and figuring out what people are saying about you. Now, that might be actionable for some companies, but it's not enough. So only to monitor a particular keyword, thank you, good colors. So only to monitor one particular keyword or 2 particular keywords does not tell you how you're performing on Facebook or how you're performing as a company. You actually have to know much more than that. And that's why we as a company, we look at profiles and we help compare companies' profiles on different networks. So we focus on what I called competitive benchmarking. And to see what that is, it's actually ranking, benchmarking, and competitive monitoring. What I mean by benchmarking, I'll explain soon. Obviously, people are really focused on Facebook, and as they should be. It's a key platform. It's something that every company should focus on. But at the same time, there are many other platforms to look at. There's the traditional big platforms like YouTube, like Twitter. But there's also the smaller platforms, up-and-coming platforms like Google+, Tumblr, Pinterest. And marketers are focusing more of their efforts on those platforms as well. Now, what's missing around that is a centralized measurement of, well, if the companies are not putting it in their own websites, if they're actually advertising sites on other profiles, their profiles on other sites that they don't own, so it's earned media, you know, how do we measure all of that? How do we make sure there's a particular set of metrics around that? And how do we make sure that this is all sort of organized very well? And obviously, metrics in general are not available, are failing. So basically, companies just monitor number of fans or number of mentions maybe in the listening, but that's not even a comparative metric. So we as a company focused on actually understanding that. We're monitoring over 50 million profiles on Facebook, Twitter, Google+, YouTube, and other platforms as well, to be able to understand more about how metrics work. And being a company that's originally from Europe, and sort of expanded around the world, we understand the importance of local marketing and local social media marketing and local metrics. So we build our platform around that. So if you look at actually the metrics that I have on the screen, so fans is one thing that's important. Engagement rate, as we call it, is critically important. But also response rate, response time. If people write you on your profile, you better reply them because they apparently want something. Especially if you're a services company, mobile operator, airline, car company. I mean, we've seen car companies that have actually gotten a request and responded it in 3 months or not responded it at all. But it wasn't a request like, how are you guys doing? It was a request, where can I buy the new I would say the car brand, but I won't. Where can I buy this new car? I'm in this location. I'm looking for a dealership to buy it. Can I come in tomorrow? This guy wanted to buy a car, wrote them, and probably had to find other channels. But why didn't the car company service him in that place, in that point, where he wanted to? That's a problem. And obviously, monitoring the growth of the community is important. So basically, we created a very simple metric called engagement rate. And engagement rate is the only possible public calculation of social engagement, which is the number of interactions, regardless if those are likes, comments, or shares of your post, of that content you're sharing, divided by the number of fans on a given post. Now, we quickly understood this is a very good qualitative metric, and a lot of our customers are using that. For example, Renault actually says that they're measuring their whole social media success by the engagement rate, by figuring out how engaging their communities are versus their size. And this is important. And we went on to create more of those. So we figured that on a post level, actually, if you optimize, that's great, but many of the companies optimize around the Facebook algorithms, around the Twitter streams, and they organize on a number of daily metrics. So actually today, we're announcing a change in the platform that's coming on Monday, but we've already rerun the data across our entire history of our entire platform. And today we have a new metric called Facebook Daily Page Engagement Rate. And this is basically, it's a daily engagement rate metric. So it doesn't divide by the number of posts, but just looks at a daily basis. Now, of course, that engagement rate can be also shown sort of on sorry, I need one more, I think. That engagement rate to show and compare, the post one is on the left side, and the daily is on the right side. So the daily is more oriented around community, around building a strong community on a daily basis, an active community. So this is actually the top brands in Egypt based on their engagement rate. And you can see that BMW and Vodafone are the #1 and #2 in Egypt, but they're not #1 in the daily engagement rate because they don't post as much. They optimize very well on a post level, but in a total volume, on a daily basis, they're not #1. It's community pages, actually. And if I look at the entire spectrum, we actually made the same metric available for Facebook, for Twitter, and now, obviously, on a post level, you can't get that on YouTube because videos come viral. They don't work as the Facebook news feed, but the daily engagement rate can also be applied to YouTube, for example. So we create these metrics and try and help marketers compare them. So on Facebook, it's retweets. On Twitter, it's retweets. On Facebook, it's the number of shares. And you can see here the comparison between the engagement rate of Avea and Turkcell in Turkey over the last 6 months. So you can see that this is a metric that really, to follow that, is important, and it's purely qualitative metric for your content. And we go further than that. So we look at ranking, another relevant part. So we rank on our website based on the number of fans. If you then use the products that we have that are more advanced, we then show obviously by the engagement rate. But we as a company focus on ranking the individual pages in social in a lot of countries. I believe in over 100 of them now. And people come in and they actually suggest, okay, this page should be in the Egyptian ranks or in the Saudi ranks. And we approve that. And based on those rankings, or more segmented rankings, for example, you see the telecom operators or telco category in Turkey, we can then create a benchmark. Basically, companies use our tools to compare themselves in social media. But comparing one-to-one is good sometimes, but for many companies, it's more interesting to compare my page to my category. So they actually look at, in this case, Avea versus telecom operators in Turkey. So Avea they can nicely say, okay, in January and February, we were performing better than other telcos in Turkey. Well, and in March, our engagement went slightly down. Maybe we didn't have that interesting content. And that's the beauty of engagement and looking at engagement. Another metric that I mentioned is response rate. So especially for services companies, response rate and response time is critical. So response rate, how we calculate that is the number of wall posts and that actually got responded by the company itself, not by other people, by the company itself. So this is the response rate for Avea and Turkcell in this case. Actually, both very, very good response rates. We always say anything above 60% is great, because many of the questions might be rhetorical questions, like, are you guys stupid? Do you think that this is a good service? And some of the brands choose to respond that in different ways, or hide that, or delete that, or mark it as spam. But many of them, the smart ones, already know that you have to respond to customers. You have to engage with them, and you have to engage with them quite quickly. So another one of the metrics here that you see is response time, actually. So this is a fantastic response time of both of these operators. They basically respond 50% of their posts in 30 minutes. 50% of all their wall posts in 30 minutes. And that's 2,000 wall posts in a month. That's a lot of wall posts. And Turkcell doing very similarly in this case. But this is a very good response rate and response time. So the average response rate of the industry currently is 15%. So the people asking in social media, and those are questions, get only responded in 15% of cases. That's tragic. And on average, in 72 hours, when they do get responded. That's also very tragic. Now, when we surveyed customers to ask, when do you expect actually responses in social media, the average was a couple hours, basically. So to respond in 72 hours versus a couple hours, and to 15% versus obviously what a customer would want, 100%, that's something that where a lot of these social media presentations that I've seen, you should build conversations with people, but then we see the reality of things, of how even some of the companies presenting that are doing not very well. Obviously, looking at things like key influencers. Those are the most active fans on your communities, on your pages. Might not be positive influencers, might be negative influencers, might be neutral ones, might be positive ones that turn to negative ones, might be negative ones that turn to positive ones. But you should know about that. When we launched this on our platform, one of our telco customers said, well, it's nice that you have 20 pages of these influencers. Can I get the top 20,000 of my influencers? I want to work with it, and I want to work it in the CRM, and I actually want to maybe do some special campaigns around that. And obviously optimizing the content. This is, for example, Vodafone UK's top content. And this is really, again, there's talk about building something that's authentic. You want to be authentic in social. And I always laugh because, again, those companies are not very authentic that want to be authentic. But this Vodafone UK, in this case, is doing quite a good job with being authentic. And if you look at the individual posts they're putting on their page, it's very authentic. It's very good. And obviously, every company should try and be more social, be more close with their fans and with their community. And that's what, for example, Vodafone UK is doing. This is a small case from Vodafone in Czech Republic. They do use our analytics, and they have this big spike. And we're actually teaching our platform more and more to monitor those spikes. So that there's a, if there's a huge spike, you actually get monitored right away, actionably, in an hour, that this is something's happening on one of your profiles or all of your profiles, and it would typically be all of your profiles. This is actually 300 customers that are complaining about new prices, around new data caps being implemented. And at the end of the next day, at the end of that day that they posted, Vodafone announced it at night, the day before, and basically they changed it back. They said, all right, we get your concerns. The other operators don't have it, so we'll go back into discussion mode, and we won't do this, basically. This is not what we should do, probably. So this was a great thing that Vodafone also checked this, and obviously we're checking their analytics, and they've had a really big bloodbath on their social presence. Tomorrow or Monday, depending on when we publish it on our blog, we created something that is quite new for us, our quarterly reports. And we prioritize all the Middle Eastern countries because of the conference here. So on Monday, we have them finished already, so we might try and put them on the blog now. We created quarterly reports of the top Facebook pages and Facebook engagement in every country in the Middle East, or most of the big ones that were prioritized by the ArabNet team. And we'll be publishing them now, so we hope that you guys will share them when you get those. And I haven't talked about much what we offer around that. Many of the data was from our products, from our pro products. But we as a company, we have a great site, and if you're not using it yet, go to socialbakers.com, write it down, make sure you tweet about it as well or something like that. And that's the go-to place for social stats. And when you get that, and after you get how that site works, and you'll get that fairly quickly, you'll quickly understand that you need a better view on those stats, a more advanced view on those stats. And that's the SocialBakers Pro Analytics that we have. That's one of our first analytics product. We're going to be launching 5 more throughout this year. One that we're really excited, we actually launched silently last week. If you can find it on the site, you'll be lucky. But it's basically a social net promoter score product for automatic research from social media. And we've tested it on car companies in Europe, and the results were stunning. And some car companies with the net promoter scores are between sort of 1 and 10 or 10 or 100. And some car companies ranked 10 to 21, which is a very negative, very, very negative average score on their net promoters. So they should be doing something about that. Maybe they don't even know. So, in the car companies, if they look at maybe some of the younger groups that rate, they should look at a long-term view, maybe at a 5-year view, 10-year view, when these guys are going to be buying cars, that the perception they have among the social savvy audience is very, very bad. So with that, I'd just like to summarize my presentation. And I'm good on time, right? How am I on time? Perfect. I hope I wasn't that quick, actually. So if you're monitoring social media, choose the right metrics to monitor. Don't be influenced. Some of the agencies, which we love to work with agencies, want to make metrics so they always look good. Make sure you have an independent player in there. Make sure they have an independent tool if your agency does it. Make sure that if you do it through the right tools. Excel, not a good tool. So we've seen a lot of companies obviously coming and pulling data from social media manually, and good luck with that. We pull 50 million data units, around 50 million pages, and it's hundreds of millions of units, billions that we have to analyze on a weekly basis. So it's really cool to work with that. Build great social content. Basically, content will be driving engagement. So if you won't be building good content, it won't be good engagement. And people keep asking me, should we build videos? Should we build photos? Should we build status updates? What's better? None of those is better. A good mix is what's the best. So mixing the content just right. And how do you figure that? You look at your page, look at the analytics, look at the engagement by these post types, by the topics that you did and that you used on your communities, on your Facebook page, on your Twitter profiles. Obviously, make sure you do both proactive and reactive engagement, so don't only just send updates. I mean, what British Airways has done is 2 weeks before the last ash cloud crisis with the volcano, I don't know if they predicted that or something, if they had anything to do with that, but they basically closed down their Facebook page for wall posts. And as the only airliner in the world, still have it, basically saying, you're not welcome. Obviously, people are going to still use comments on your post because you can't lock it. I'm sure maybe British Airways would lock even those if they wanted, if they were allowed to lock those. But that's not social media. That's not really social behavior in social media. If you lock down your profile, sorry, we're closed for comments. But what they're doing, on a PR front is saying, we'll give every flight attendant an iPad and respond every concern on your, they'll have a CRM full of tweets from people on the planes. I mean, start somewhere where it's more important. Start on your Facebook page with like 500,000 fans. Start there. Don't start with planes. I mean, start somewhere where it counts, where people are asking, is this flight available? What flight is this plane on? What is this plane parameters? Or having concerns. And obviously use the right tools and partners. I'm sure you guys have a solid infrastructures of partners already. If you're agencies, you have the right infrastructure of local suppliers of different tools. For us, we're obviously welcoming new business in every region, in every market. Feel free to find me and talk to me. That's obviously how that works. If you wanna work with us or write our sales. But since I'm here, definitely use and abuse the opportunity. I'll be available around all day. And with that, thank you very much.